Hey guys, welcome to the I Hope They Hear This podcast. And we have another really special guest with us today. Thank you so much for coming, Pastor Daniel Kim.
Yes, that is my name.
Yes, thank you for being here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you actually are the most requested guest on this podcast.
Wow, really?
I've had several people say, hey, you should do an episode with Pastor Dan. He has a lot to say. And just from we just had dinner downstairs with our wives, and just from the little bit I heard about your life, and you do have some really great stories.
Oh, man.
I don't know if we'll get to the stories that we talked about today on this episode, but I'm hoping you can do it in the future episode.
Yeah, right. I'm totally down. I know Esther's down too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, but before we get into some of the things that some of your stories, I was wondering if you could just give a brief intro to who you are, what you do, what your passions are, what wakes you up in the morning.
Oh, man. Yeah, this is I love this because it's so authentic, and I'm so glad, David, that you're doing this podcast. I think it's very needed.
Oh, wow.
And I think that it's a blessing, especially in Atlanta, for Korean American Christian people. Not that every listener is only Christian,
right.
But I don't know. I really love seeing things like this. Creative outlets where the generations are just kind of they're banding together to do something good. And I love the. I know I'm not answering your question yet, but I'll get to it. But I even love the title, of the podcast. And in my experience with you and Shirley, I really have seen the thoughtfulness of you two.
Wow.
And just the ingenuity and the way that you guys are able to creatively express and articulate not only your faith, but also also just the way that you guys think and the way that, with the franchise that your wife has started, with all of the tables that have been built, and the books that you've authored, and this podcast. And so it's such a treat and honor to be here.
Wow,
thank you.
So
thank you.
Thank you. Such kind words.
But about me, so currently I'm a youth and EM pastor at Salt and Light Presbyterian Church in Beaufort, Georgia. It's a small little community. It's my home church, actually. It's where I first came up. So they were my first youth group ever.
Oh.
And even 10 years since I was the youth pastor, there are still many who have remained.
Oh, wow.
And of course there are some who have gone on, and who have moved on to other places. Really want to see them return. So I don't know if they'll hear this.
Yeah.
But yeah, all that to say, I'm a pastor. I'm also a hospital chaplain in Emory University Hospital in Clifton Road in Atlanta. And let's see. I'm also still in seminary. A lot of people don't know that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And so I started seminary around like 2012, 2011-ish. And I've just been transferring from school to school.
Oh.
I'm at my third seminary right now.
Oh, wow. You were in Philly at one point.
Yes.
You were telling us downstairs.
Yeah, I was at Westminster Seminary. That's where I met Esther. That's where we got married, and then moved to Boston for a couple of years. And so I was there at Gordon Conwell for a little bit. And while we were there, I just really received a very obvious call from the Lord to return to Atlanta. And so, that's where we ended up at Promise. And we were there. And so I've been in RTS, Reformed Theological Seminary in Marietta, for the past, 2.5 years. Only one class away.
Oh, wow.
From graduating.
Congratulations.
So, I'm really stoked about that. I'm going to graduate in May. That's something that, wakes me up in the morning to finish and to finish well.
Oh,
and so that's currently some of the hats that I'm wearing.
I see.
What are some passions? So I really enjoy Hawks basketball.
Oh.
Right. I also enjoy. This is something not a lot of people know about me. I really enjoy collecting comic books. Actually.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so it's something that. Yeah, it's something that I've been not only dabbling in, but it's actually something that helped me survive when we were back in Boston. Not spiritually survive or anything like that. I used to buy, sell, and trade, and because when Esther and we were living in Boston, oh man, times were rough. And you know, the just to give you some numbers. So while I was working at a church in Boston, Esther and I were getting paid, I believe, around $1,200 a month. And in Boston, that doesn't stretch far at all. You know, and I think our rent was something around $750 without utilities.
Wow.
And we were attending school, and so yeah, I just had to grind and find a way to help us to like survive. You know, and one of those avenues was buying low and selling high.
Wow.
With comic books. I used to actually also be really into trading, day trading, crypto, and things like that.
Wow.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I don't know, something about grinding and trying to make $1, you know, just to help our family survive.
Yeah.
That's always been, for some reason, something a part of my DNA that I haven't been able to escape since I was even in like elementary school.
Wow. Were you still in crypto in what was it, like 3 years back when it like?
Oh yeah, that was the height. Yeah. So actually, through day trading, I think I had like 0.1 Bitcoin, and I was able to turn it into over 9.
Wow.
Over that time period.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's really stressful.
Oh yeah.
Because with like stocks and, you know, index funds, ETFs, and options and all of that, you know, the market, it closes and it opens at a certain time, but crypto's 24/7.
Right.
And having to go, I had no idea I was going to share all this, but like having to go, you know, 24/7, and also the wild swings, you know, the stress. I mean, the most I've made in one trade was maybe $46K.
Wow.
But the most I've lost is actually around 90.
Wow.
Yeah. So just so much stress, so much like cortisol, you know, the stress chemical, like pumping through my body, and it got to a point where I was just getting really sick. And I pulled out of that simply because health reasons, but also I think deep down inside my own heart, I had so many idolatry issues, you know, and I just really struggled to trust the Lord in many areas to provide. And I think that my desire to grind and provide, although it's coming from a really good place, you know, as I'm not a father, as a husband and as the head of the house,
a spiritual father to your church.
Thank you. You're very kind. And especially with my mother now living with us, nearing retirement, you know, I want to provide. And I want to provide well. Yeah. But sometimes in that desire to do something good, I would lose sight of, you know, my Heavenly Father, who always does provide. And yeah, man, I'm just answering your first question. But all that to say, you know, those are some of the things that I've done. You know, I was in the military for a little bit, straight out of high school, right around the 9/11 era.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and so I signed up as soon as I saw the planes hit the towers.
Wow! Wait, so was that like your motivating factor, just because of that, or were you kind of already thinking about it?
Well, I had a lot of motives going into it. I think the core motivation, if I could cut through to the center of it, it was, it actually was more about myself. You know, I had grown up in the traditional church. My family went to church every Sunday, and it also ties into my birth story, in that my mother had a really hard time conceiving, you know, and she had multiple, what's it called, miscarriages, and she even had a stillbirth, which is like, I can't imagine,
Oh, yeah.
you know, the kind of pain
Yeah.
and heartache. And of course, the doctors were kind of telling her, because my mom's body had always been kind of weak, and so they were asking her, recommending to her to perhaps stop trying to have children. You know, maybe it's too taxing on her body, on the finances, all of that. And my mom did not want to listen. You know, and she gathered, for the first time, she gathered all the people at church, Salt and Light. Like, this is how home church, my church is. Yeah. So she gathered all of them together, and they all prayed. And my mom made kind of like this promise to the Lord. And she said, if you give me this child, I'll give him back to you.
Wow.
Kind of like Hannah and Samuel kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was born.
Yeah.
You know, no complications. And my mom and dad would always joke that I kind of paved the way for my sister to be born because she was born.
Wow.
Like, yeah, no issues. And so the amount of pressure that I felt growing up, you're going to be a pastor. You need to honor our promise to God.
Wow.
You know, you were made for ministry, and you were given to us through prayer. And, you know, growing up, I really went with it for a long time. Like, I still have like little pictures of when I was a kid. I would draw myself preaching and stuff like that.
Wow.
You know? It's kind of cheesy, but I've discovered some of these like pictures and small journal entries and things like that. And I think right around high school, I started having a serious, like very deep identity crisis. Who am I really? You know, every week I go to church, and I'm the youth group president. I'm helping out with Bible studies. I'm on the praise team. I'm leading. But deep down inside my heart, I actually didn't know if God was my God or if God was my parents' God. Have I been grown up in the church and I'm just a product of my upbringing?
Yeah.
Or is God really my God?
Right.
I couldn't make the distinction. I couldn't tell. And the reason why this identity crisis started coming to a boiling point was because I would try new things and I would try to, you know, figure out who I was, you know. But so many people knew me. I couldn't go or do things that I really wanted to do without other people kind of putting me back into a box. You know how sometimes people think they know you.
Yeah.
And if you try to do something different, all you get is judgment, you know, and it's hard for people to view you as someone who can change, as someone who can be multidimensional, especially when you're young. That's just something that is tough. And I can't blame everyone around me. I think deep down inside my own heart, I was also wearing a mask, and I didn't feel safe to show or share who I was. And that's the thing. I didn't know who I was. And so I joined the military as a way to test that.
I see.
Like, whoever I am when I come out, that must be who I really am. Because when I go there, no one knows me. I can reinvent myself. You know, I could do whatever I wanted. Sin would be encouraged. You know, going to church was something that would not be encouraged.
Right.
And in a sense, I really believed I had to put it to the test. Who am I really? And is God really my God? And so that was the primary reason why I joined the military. Surface level, other reasons. You know, I didn't want to do SATs. I didn't want to. You know, I saw everyone around me doing their college essays, college apps, struggling and straining so much, and I was never really. I don't say never, but I just didn't. I didn't appreciate systematic schooling, you know, public schooling, and even though I retained all the information, it was something that I was always wondering: is there a better way? And
can I ask which branch of the military that you signed for?
Of course, I was in the Army.
I see. Okay.
Active duty Army. I was a Patriot missile station operator and maintainer.
Huh. What is a Patriot missile?
So it stands for. It's an acronym.
Okay.
And it stands for Phased Array Tracking Radar Intercept on Target Missile. What that is it's air defense artillery. So it's kind of like when you play StarCraft in the old days. You know those revolving missile turrets? It looks similar to that, right? But instead of... it's actually just like that, if you think about it. But essentially, Yeah, we would reload missiles, and we would have to daisy chain all these things together, because the way that the missile launchers communicated with each other, you had to run fiber optic cable and connect them all, and then you had to connect them to the main kind of like launch pad station.
Okay.
And we had other guys who would look at the radar, interpret the data, and push the button. But we were the ones who would go out, set up, maintain, and do missile reload and things like that, with like forklifts and stuff.
You're like physically reloading the missiles back into the turrets.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like we had to climb onto the missile turrets and with like all these tools and like crank things in, and yeah, it sounds cooler than it was. I'll say that.
Were you deployed overseas, or was this on like U.S. soil?
So I joined the military right after 9/11, and Air Defense Artillery, our units are the ones who deploy first.
Okay.
Because you don't want to just send ground troops without having a defensive scheme set up for the sky, you know? And so it's kind of like chess. You don't want to move out the attacking pieces until you have like a safety net and a defense, right? And so we're usually the ones who are sent out first. When I signed up, they'd already sent, all the units overseas, and Iraq was a very poor nation, and so they didn't have fighter jets, they didn't have anything. They just had what was called Scud missiles, which is a very rudimentary. It was just fill up a barrel with gasoline and launch it at a certain angle. They would change the azimuth or whatever, and then they would light it on fire, and they would see it land, and then they would just crank and adjust the pitch, or the way that they would. So it was very rudimentary. It was almost like, I don't want to say cavemanish, but it was very simple.
Yeah.
And they didn't need something as technologically advanced as Patriot missile launchers. And so to answer your question, man, I feel like I'm answering your question in such roundabout ways.
This is all amazing.
And so I was not deployed to Iraq. I was not deployed to any of those other places. What Air Defense Artillery did most of the time during the War on Terror, what we did was we covered down on everyone else's jobs because they were over there.
I see.
And so, we did random details. One of the coolest ones, I think, was we got deployed to Egypt. My unit got deployed.
Oh, wow.
And our job was to defend and protect the Egyptian prime minister during this one season and time. Another cool mission was that we went to the border of like Canada, and using our radar systems, we were doing a lot of drug busts.
Wow.
Yeah, like drug dealers who were going from America to the U.S. And
from Canada to the U.S.
Yeah.
Huh.
And so we spent a lot of time at the border doing things like that. But yeah, it sounds a lot cooler and it sounds a lot more fun than real to life. And so
so how long were you in the military?
I was in for about 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually have one question that I always wanted kind of verification on. Is there a like service term requirement to be called a veteran?
That's a really good question. So this is just my understanding. You can fact check this on like any veteran website.
Okay.
What I know is that, so there are military contracts that you sign, and those contracts range anywhere from 3 years. Usually, they might have a 2-year program now. I'm not sure, but they range anywhere from 3 to 8 years. And you can just re-enlist afterward if you want to do that. And the military is usually very open with you re-enlisting if you want to do that. A lot of people, and this is for you people who are considering the military, I'm not sure if your recruiter will tell you this, so I'm going to tell you this now. Regardless of what year of commitment that you choose to do, whether it's 3 or 4 or 6, everyone who signs up is actually serving 8 years. And so there's something called inactive reserve. And so if if you sign up for 3 years, that means that after you come out, you have 5 years remaining where they can call you up for any reason, anything at all. And generally, it's for deployment. And so I have a friend who was in for 4 years, got out, and then they recalled him back to go to Iraq, actually.
Wow.
And when you get sent back, you're just attached to a unit that needs you. So it's not always your own job that you trained for. So he didn't go back in as a air defense artillery guy. But the military trains you.
Wow.
And they'll definitely support you if they call you back. But having said that, you always serve 8 years. Minimum time, I'm not sure. I think you have to at least finish basic training and finish AIT, which is called Advanced Individual Training. That's where you learn your job. So basic training is where every soldier goes and they learn the basics of being a soldier, like the baseline foundation of being a soldier. And then AIT is where you graduate basic training and they send you to where you need to learn your specified field of like work. Yeah. And so my AIT was extremely long. It was a year and a half because we were working with missiles. Right. We were working with surface to air, specialized radar and things like that. And and so to my understanding, the minimum length would be at least finishing basic AIT, and it really depends how you're discharged.
I see.
And so if you are honorably discharged, then you are a veteran. If you're negative, like dishonorably discharged, that's like the worst thing that can happen. I mean, I know a guy who had like 3 DUIs, and he spent some time for drug charges, and he still got out with a less than honorable, which is the middle one.
Oh, wow.
And so if you come out with a dishonorable, what did you do?
Right.
And so...
So when you just finish so you signed up for 3 years. When you finish that and you leave the Army, is that considered honorable discharge, or is it just your contract is over?
So if you fulfill the terms and the length of your contract, it is going to be honorably discharged.
I see.
Because you have served your country honorably, faithfully, and you didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
You know, if you do some heinous crime that's worthy of other than honorable or dishonorable, they'll give it to you. But I mean, these people know. They know that when you come out of the military, you're going to have to go back into civilian life. And to be marked with dishonorable discharge, that's something that follows you.
That's huge. Huh?
Yeah, it really follows you. Yeah. And so, yeah, anyone who fulfills honorably will receive the honorable discharge.
So when you signed up, did your recruiter tell you that even though you're only signing up for 3 years, you're going to be inactive for 5 additional years? Or is that something you found out when you got there?
I found out after.
Wow.
But I have to say, my recruiter was one of the best.
Okay.
He really looked after me. He proactively got me promoted.
Wow.
To E3, which is private first class. Normally when you go in, you're just a private, you're E1. And so I went in
2 steps.
Yeah, 2 steps way ahead. And that's more pay, that's more respect, honor, but it's also more responsibility.
Right.
But I really thank my recruiter because he was really on my side. And for those of you who are looking into going into the military, your recruiter is like everything. Your recruiter, who you get. There are some people, and this is true of every job out there. There are some people who are only doing the job because it's a job.
Right.
And you can tell.
Right.
You can tell when someone doesn't have a sense of pride or honor in their work. And I had someone who I really believed in what he did.
Yeah.
And if there's anyone out there who's looking for a recruiter that has that kind of heart, just contact me. I still have contacts in the military who can connect you to the resources that you might need.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. That kind of blew my mind. So your 8 years is over now, right? Or is it still? Okay.
No. So I'm 35, and I joined when I was 18, and so yeah, I'm way over that mark.
So if let's say I don't under. It's because of my lack of knowledge with how the military works.
Yeah.
Let's say there was, with like Iran right now.
Sure.
There's all this talk of World War III or whatever.
Like a draft and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are the? So I've heard that the chances of there being a draft is next to nothing.
Yes, that is true.
Is that true? But
I would agree with that.
What are the chances of veterans such as yourself being brought back in?
So for me, a little lesser known fact, I actually got boarded out of the military early. So I was supposed to serve 4 years, but I incurred some pretty significant injuries to my my spine.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's conditions that are common in the 5th or 6th decade of life, and so it's not that bad. But I did receive it when I was in my teens.
Yeah.
But so having said that, the military is taking care of me. I get free healthcare.
Oh wow.
Completely free, and because of the status and because of what had happened, I am on the same level as I don't think this should be, but I'm thankful to the Lord that this is. But my medical status is similar to Purple Heart Award winners and Vietnam War vets.
Wow.
Yeah, just thank you, Jesus, for that. But having said that, so draft. For my specific situation, in order for someone who got medically boarded out to go back in, what you need to do is you need approval, and you need a kind of like a note or an override from a United States senator in order to go back in. Wow. And of course I would forfeit all benefits that I had, and there would be extensive testing as to whether or not I can actually perform the duties that are expected and required of me. But what a lot of people don't know is that if the draft were to be reinstated, first of all, America would go into chaos. Like, just everyone, no one wants that.
Right.
And for that to happen today, I mean, even back then when they did it in Vietnam, people were rallying, people were rioting, they were protesting. Yeah. I believe even more so now. Right. But having said that, the way that they normally do it, so Congress puts out, it's an interesting process. They put out a certain number that needs to be filled in order to go to war. And let's say it's like 500,000. They need 500,000 troops. And so what they do is they have like computers that generate because at 18, you're supposed to sign up for the selective reserve. Right. It's illegal for you not to. It's for the sake of the nation. If we're called to battle, then we have to do that. Yeah. And what Congress does is it gets fed into this like algorithm, and then things get printed out, and they go into this big machine that looks like a lottery ball kind of thing, where they're spinning all these like balls, right? And one ball comes out and they select it, and the way that they choose who needs to show up to be in processed is they read out the birthday. And so they'll say November 1st, which is my birthday. Then every single person who's born on November 1st across the United States would have to, I think they get like a week or two. Wow. Yeah, to like close their affairs and to let everyone know that they've been drafted. And then they got to show up at in-processing on that day. And anyone who's born on that day that doesn't show up, it's not good. There's warrants out for arrest. Wow. And if you resist joining your AWOL during a time of war, which is not good. Yeah. But
is that how they did it for Vietnam?
It is.
Wow.
And so everyone's watching the TV, hoping that their birthday doesn't get called. And so let's say they call out the birthday, and the way that it works is you can only be drafted if you're 18 to 26. A lot of people don't know that.
I see.
Okay, and so what they do is they skip the year of 18. Okay. Okay. And they go from 19 all the way to 26. And if the numbers have not yet been fulfilled that Congress needs or prescribes, then they go to the 18-year-olds. So they give 18-year-olds the last kind of thing because they're so young.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, yeah, that's the structure. That's the format.
That's interesting. So when you go and you're drafted, when you're in, basic training, you're pretty much with everyone with the same birthday as you.
Yes.
that's I did not know that. Wow.
Well, at least for in processing, I don't know what happens after that because if they want to make it all cut and neat because you're there with everyone, then okay, it would be like that.
Yeah.
Excuse me, but I don't know if they'll ship you somewhere else,
right.
with other people. I don't know how that works. I just know that for the in processing day, when people show up, everyone has the same birthday as you. Oh.
I see. Wait, so can I ask how your spine injury happened?
Yeah.
With this again, if it's like personal, you don't want to talk about it. Totally fine not talking about it, but
it's fine.
Okay.
So to make a very long story short, what it was we would do these very grueling, enduring ruck marches. And a ruck march is essentially where you put on all your gear, and all the armor, and you have your weapon and all the ammunition. And all you do is it's like a long hike. You just go hiking.
Yeah.
And for some reason, my unit thought it would be hilarious if the smallest guy, so I'm 5'6", I'm not the tallest dude. I don't think I'm the shortest either, but in the military, I'm telling you, everyone was huge. They were like 6'3", 6'6", 6'7". My roommate, he was a Russian guy, and I'm telling you, man, he was like 6'5". He was ripped. Wow. He was huge. He used to be a Coke model before he joined the military.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he was just gigantic, amazing guy. One of my drill sergeants, he was like 6'8", and I remember one of the first days we were there, he was yelling at us and telling us, according to the military standards, he's like 50 pounds overweight. And then he like lifted up his shirt. There was a ripping like six pack, right? I mean, it was insane how big this guy was. And he was like, "Do I look fat to y'all?" And of course we're like, "No, Drill Sergeant, we're so sorry. Why are you yelling at us? Why are you showing us your ripping abs?" And he his name was Drill Sergeant Night. Like darkest night. And he was that guy. And he walked around everywhere and he carried a huge bamboo stick for some reason. It was super intimidating. But I don't know how we got here, but all that to say, everyone was huge. The injury, right? And so they thought it would be really hilarious to give the smallest guy like the biggest weapon. And so I carried what's called the M249.
Okay.
And they call it the SAW, SAW, and it stands for Squad Automatic Weapon. And it's one of those weapons that's so heavy that it comes with its own bipod that's tucked in. And when you carry it and you get to the ground, you extend the bipod, put on the ground so that it balances, and you put the hilt of the weapon on your shoulder. And you do this while the bipod is like supporting the front. And it's a weapon that you need like someone next to you. You need someone next to you who's holding the ammo so that it goes like, So it's actually like a two-person, like a support weapon. I had a huge machine gun everywhere I went.
Right.
And over time, I think it just started wearing away at like the cartilage and at my discs and stuff. And you see, when I first got the injury, I complained about it. I told them, hey, something's not right. My back's locking up and I'm unable to move. And they thought that I was just trying to get out of work. And they thought that I was lying. And so over time, it got to the point where I actually wasn't able to walk. And I mean, it was really bad. I was taking showers on all fours. And that's something that's, as a human being, that's something that it's just very undignified. And I remember being in the midst of that kind of environment, being required to do so much physically strenuous things, but also my leaders don't believe me. And it wasn't until I met the right doctor who gave me the diagnosis. I mean, my medical file is so thick.
Wow.
and I went to the hospital many times trying to get something. The providers would change, and then I would have to start over, with the different doctors that would come in, things like that. And I finally met with a doctor who was a Christian, and he checked all these things out, and he saw that I was not lying.
Yeah.
And he got the right paperwork filed, and then my unit was like, "Oh, I guess you weren't lying."
Oh my gosh.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the story of how that happened.
Wow. So after that injury, so that was I'm assuming at like the 3-year mark?
Yes.
And so
around the 2.5 mark.
I see. And so they said, wow, you're too injured. You go home pretty much.
It was, was, thank you for your service. Sorry. and then, it's transitioning out to go back into civilian life.
Wow.
And so right after that, I got on a plane, came back home. And when I came home, I kid you not, I slept for like 3 months. I don't think I was awake I just got up to eat, and then I went to bed. And it frustrated my girlfriend at the time.
Yeah.
And
you're finally back, but you're not even.
Yeah. And I was just sleeping all the time.
Yeah.
But I think it was just a sleep debt that had occurred while I was in the military. It's totally different now, though. Like the Army has completely changed. I remember getting physically hit. I remember the gas chambers being, hopped up to the point where it was. I mean, I overheard my drill sergeant saying, "Is this even legal?" And they're laughing and stuff. And I mean, I can tell you all about the gas chamber too, if you want to hear about that.
What is a gas chamber?
So every single military member, they say it's so that you can grow to trust your equipment.
Okay.
That they have you put on your gas mask because it's part of your equipment. It's a little bag that sits on your right leg, and you tie it up on there. And whatever situation you're in, you need a gas mask because the enemy can throw biochemical weapons or grenades or whatever at you. And in order to inspire a confidence that your equipment works, and you need to know how to put it on in the midst of a stressful environment, what they do is they pretty much march you into a warehouse where they're cooking a certain kind of like gas. And they call it CS gas. It's designed to be an irritant. Okay. It's crystals that cling to every part of you, and it's just designed to. It's like tear gas on steroids. Wow. In a sense. Okay. And so I've experienced CS gas outside of basic training. So when I was in my regular unit, I would get gassed, and you know what? It's not that bad actually. When it's by itself, it's not bad. But when I was in basic training, they did something to it. They poured, the drill sergeants, they all got together and they thought it would be hilarious if they like made it crazier. Now,
oh my god!
You got to understand, this was right after 9/11, and my drill sergeants, I understand now why they did what they did. And of course, there's some level of being a drill sergeant and you hate your job because. And this is something that I've grown to respect about drill sergeants. Even though they're yelling at you, even though they're cussing at you, even though they're making your life an absolute hell, they're always with you. And you kind of notice that.
I see.
Every morning, they get up first. Every run, they're running in the front. Everything that they're doing with you. They're there. They're not just someone who comes and yells at you and then leaves.
Right.
And so their life sucks too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they essentially pour out. And you have there's a strange psychology where you go from like really hating this guy to really respecting him and wanting his like approval kind of thing. It's a crazy
Do you think
psychology.
There's any sort of a Stockholm syndrome?
100%, man, 100%. They want that to happen. They break you down. They break you down so that you are no longer who you used to be, and then they build you back up into who they want you to be.
I see.
And it's just. But again, I don't know how things are now.
I see.
Because I think now they give you like a card, and one side is red, one side is green, kind of like Fogo or something. And when the drill sergeant yells at you, you can put a red card down, and then they have to stop. So
Interesting.
I don't know what's happening. These are things that I've heard.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, I'm hearing about people going into the military now and telling me it's like going to camp. And I'm like, what? How is that even possible? My experience was so terrible. It was so bad.
Yeah. Because, as a person who has to go through it, I'm sure it's helpful that there's a way to stop it from happening, like turning the red card. But as a citizen, it's like, what kind of soldiers are we producing if, you know what I mean? So, that's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah. And I'm just going off of stories that I've heard people tell me. They're like, oh, the military was nothing like you told me. It's like easy now. And I don't know if they're just trying to be tough.
I see. Yeah.
And they're just kind of, but the existence of a red and green card, I don't know. But in today's kind of like politically correct culture,
right,
I can fathom that this would be a reality.
I see. Yeah.
But what do I know? I haven't been in the military in forever.
Yeah. And who knows? Maybe, I don't know, maybe coddling the people a little bit. I don't know. Maybe there's a positive effect of it. Who knows?
Maybe.
Yeah.
And,
I don't know.
And maybe some sites, some basic training sites, they're a lot harsher than others. I know for me, I trained in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And when I was there, it was before the Oklahoma Thunder were there. And what people don't know about the Marine Corps is that, so Navy, they handle sea stuff, like the ocean and the waters. Of course, they have like fighter jets and they have all these other things too, but that's what they're known for.
Right.
And Air Force is known for covering the skies. Army is usually with the ground. Yeah. We have Border Patrol, we have National Guard who protect our nation. Yeah. And the reserves are ones who are reserves. Yeah. What do the Marine Corps do? And so Marine Corps, they actually fill in the gaps between all of the branches. Oh. And that means that they actually don't have their own bases. And so they're attached usually to a Army base, or they're attached and they do their training at a Navy base. They don't have their own like Marine Corps base for training. So they're attached to other places. And in a way, you kind of like train together. Yeah. And so, in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where I was at, I remember there being, as we were on our morning run, there's A group, B group, C group. And as we were running, I remember A group being the fastest. I was not A group, like ever. I don't know how they do it, like 5-minute miles. Wow. Yeah. Wow. And I was in B group. And I remember just running with our group. And there's like 30, 40 of us running together in unison in formation. And I remember this happened so much. I would look over and I'm like, no, because there's a Marine Corps group running. And then the person in front of us leading our group would say, we're going to let Marines beat us. And then we go faster. And then the Marine Corps guys would be like, oh, we're going to let Army beat us. And they would go faster. And then we're like, we can't let the Marines win. And so we'd go faster. And it gets to the point where we're just, formation is breaking apart. Everyone's just doing sprints. Yeah. And in my heart, I'm wondering, why are we doing this? Like, why are we allowing our pride to do this? Yeah. And that's just a picture of some of the stuff that we had to go through. I mean, wow. Yeah, I'm not even touching some of the more traumatic experiences that have occurred. Maybe I can go a little bit into the nature of what's it called? What's PTSD? Okay. Post-traumatic stress disorder. And so I believe that the way that we're created with our mind, with our body, and with our heart, like our emotions. Yeah. Okay. And in the military, what begins to happen is they have to find a way to separate your mind from your body and your emotions. Okay. So actually your mind, let me start over. They separate your body and your mind and your emotions from your mind. No. You're going to have to edit this. They separate your body from your mind and your emotions. I see. Okay. So what does that mean? Normally, when you go through any kind of experience, your body and your emotions and your mind goes through it together.
Right.
Like that's normal. Something bad happens, you experience it, physically. You'll start shaking, you might cry.
Yeah.
Your heart is overflowing with that emotion, and your mind is processing logically what's going on. And of course, some things are being expressed stronger than others. It's never a perfect. Anyway, in the military, they have to make it so that when they give you an order, such as, hey, go into that room full of the enemy and kill them.
Right.
You cannot have your own response in that moment. You cannot say, why? Or, no, I'm not doing that. You can't do that, because you have to get to a point where you do everything that you're told to do, you're ordered to do, with no hesitation, or else many other lives could be killed. Bad things can happen.
Yeah.
And you don't want a bunch of people who think for themselves.
Right.
Especially in moments where we need to be perfectly united as one. We need to follow the orders that we're given like that.
Yeah.
And so what the military does is they do this trauma-based kind of, I don't want to call it mind control, but they do this thing where they get you to disassociate your body from your mind and your emotions. In a sense, your body begins to do things, and it starts to react without your feelings or your thoughts. And so post-traumatic stress disorder is when a soldier is ordered to or does something that's very traumatic, that is not normal to human life.
Yeah.
Like killing people.
Right.
That's not something that is natural to anyone. And in the military, this is why you have these like veterans who, in the moment, their body is reacting, they're responding, they're killing people, doing things that they would never normally do as a civilian, but their mind and their heart is not experiencing it. Just their body is.
I see.
And that's why way later on, when a soldier's body is at rest, the mind and the emotions will come smacking back, and they think they're in battle.
Yeah.
They think they're in war. It's because the experience of battle has been delayed for them.
Wow.
And when their body's at rest, it comes back. And so they're stuck in that kind of like cycle, because that's not the way we're supposed to experience things.
Right.
And yet war, these things are very common.
Wow.
And so every single person, every single soldier who goes into the military, if the military is successful in creating the soldiers and the types that they want, they will do whatever is ordered of them.
Yeah.
Like, David, I would have killed and ate my family if they asked me to.
Wow.
Without any hesitation. Because that's just to the extent that I allowed the training that I embraced it. I allowed it to shape me and change me at the core of who I was. And it wasn't until really the Lord came and broke through all of that. It was that basic training, actually. Crazy. But it wasn't until that moment that I began to kind of see and understand. And I'm really grateful to God for that. But yeah, man.
Wow.
Crazy times.
So, I mean, do you feel like do you have like lingering PTSD at all from your time there?
I don't know. I don't think I do. I don't ever sense or feel as though I'm in battle when I'm not.
I see.
I don't get those kinds of things. I don't think I have a obvious thing at all. So I would say no. Although Esther might be like, I don't know, but
because PTSD, although mainly it is combat related, it's not always combat related, right?
It's true.
Yeah, because there are people who experience PTSD even when they're not in the army.
Yeah.
Any sort of traumatic experience
it's
can.
true.
So
it's very true. Yeah, like car accidents. Trigger PTSD in some people, and I think that it's impossible to avoid some kind of trauma in your life. But do I believe that I have a categorical PTSD as these soldiers who are returning And as someone who went through a car accident, I would say no.
I see.
I don't want to claim that. But I, just like everyone, I do have baggage and things that are in my heart that I've had to really wrestle with and surrender to the Lord. And
so I want to ask you a question. I'm going to be very careful how I word it.
Sure.
Because I'm not asking if you yourself would go back to the Army, but if there was, let's say, your youth group student, if there was a youth group student who said, Pastor Dan, I'm thinking about enlisting. What do you think? What would your recommendation be? And I understand that it would be different for people, specifically for who the person is. But is there kind of like what you would say more versus the other?
Yeah. So great question, by the way. And a lot of people have come and asked me about the military, specifically Army. And I've given a lot of advice to people over the years. It really depends on the person. It really depends on the person. There's no one size fits all.
Yeah.
There are some people who I believe want to join the military because they want to run away, which is actually the reason why I did it. But sometimes I see people who going into the military would utterly destroy them. It would be something that it would not be something that would be good for their overall, I think, mental status and spirituality. I think some people, for example, I don't think everyone should be wealthy. And it's because, wealth, it's an amplifier.
Right.
It's something that amplifies what's already in your heart. And if you're not thankful, if you're not surrendered, if you're not happy before wealth gets added to you, you're gonna destroy yourself. And of course, that's not true of everyone. Yeah. And I fully acknowledge that. But if you're asking me about a youth group member who asks me, what do you recommend? Assuming that I know them and that I've pastored them, or if I don't know them and they just come up and ask me maybe after a retreat or something, then I'll make the time to understand and I'll ask them questions, who are you and why would you, like, what are your motivations? What's your heart? And what is it that you're seeking? And so after all these things, there are some people who I would strongly recommend for the military. There are some people who, for example, maybe they have a lot of debt. Yeah. And they're not making any headway in school. They've got a good base, like a good foundation. Excuse me. And spiritually and mentally, I sense that this experience would be something that would add to their lives. It would be something that enriches them rather than breaks them. And it's something that I would recommend for some. For example, one of my former students, his name's Jeffrey, and he's in the military now. A lot of people listening to this podcast probably know him. He's someone I really love. So Jeffrey, if you ever hear this, I love you, man. But he's someone who asked me, what should I do? And of course, at first I was like, I don't know, because I just generally love having him around. He's one of the people who was one of my first students. But even beyond student level, he's someone who really makes me laugh. And we kind of have this connection. And when I first heard that he was considering going in, I hesitated because I didn't want him to leave. But over time, I did prayer, and I kind of thought, you know what? It might be good for him to go and experience the world, experience life, go out and at some point, I believe every namja has to kind of go out and do their own thing at one point. And so I kind of counseled him. I think at the time he wanted to go in. I forget what job he wanted to do, but I was like, Jeffrey, no. Okay, if you're gonna go in, get a job that's easily transferable into the public sector after you're done. Don't pigeonhole yourself. Don't do infantry. Because what are you gonna do when you get out? Be a contract killer or something, like mercenary, defensive specialist? Don't do that. because everyone gets basic training.
Yeah.
Everyone gets the baseline. What is it that you want to do when you get out? And he was like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, well, consider this. And I told him, consider being a sonogram technician, because women, they do not ever get deployed. And if they have a child, and you need to, like, it's called sonogram, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you're able to scan, and not only are you helping people, not only are you with them on really happy days, but also you're acquiring a medical skill that transfers very easily over into the civilian sector. And when you come out, having a United States Army training, especially in the medical field, it's something that speaks very highly for you and speaks of you. And so when you get out, you can be an X-ray tech, you can be a sonogram technician, and it's something that can set you up for success when you get out.
Right.
And I was telling him, you can just do your 4 years, come out, and the range of options are limitless now. You can go to any hospital and you're set.
Yeah.
And he took my advice. He reclassed from what he was originally going into. I forgot what it was. But he's now an X-ray tech.
Oh, wow.
And so he's working medical.
Awesome.
And it's something that...
Wait, so in the Army, when you're working with sonogram, because when you first said sonogram, I said, oh, cool, he's doing something with trying to figure out where, like, landmines are using sonar or something. But was I wrong?
So I was recommending that he work in the hospital sector.
I see.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
If I really cared about this guy, I could be like, yeah, you should pick up some, minesweeper skills in real life. That's something that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. I actually know a guy at Emory University. I was working out and I saw him, and he saw that I had an Army shirt on, and he came over. And that's what he did. He defused bombs.
Wow.
For a living. Yeah. And he was on a break before he went back out. He's living the life of Hurt Locker.
Right.
He doesn't like being here. Wow. He wants to be out there defusing bombs. And you got to be a little type of, unstable a little bit, to do that kind of work.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, praise the Lord that he has a passion and that he wants to do it.
Yeah,
because I ain't doing it. I'm not recommending my youth kids to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you feel like being in the Army was it's going to be a weird question because of your injury, but would you say it was like a positive experience for you?
Yeah. So the way that I would describe it is, it was like $1 million experience.
Wow.
But I would not do it again for $1 million.
Oh. Okay, gotcha.
And it's something that I'm so grateful for. I'm so thankful to the Lord that I got to experience that slice of life.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I would happily do again.
Right.
Now, if all, or not all, but if there were people in my life who were drafted and forced to go in, I would have a sense of duty in my heart arise to rejoin, and to do something.
Wow.
But I guess we'll see. It's all up to the Lord at this point. And I have my own wishes and my own yearnings and leanings, but it's really gonna be, will God make that call? Yeah.
Man, I actually really wanted to get into some other stuff, like your chaplaincy.
Oh yeah.
A bunch of other stuff, but we are actually, I try to keep these to an hour.
Okay.
I've gotten feedback that
wow, we went an hour already.
We're at 59 minutes right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I've just been getting feedback that when it goes over an hour, it's just difficult because.
Totally understand, man.
But I'm hoping to have you on for more of these.
Because let's do it.
These are really great stories. But just before we sign off with what little time we have, for those of you who know me, I'm a huge comic book fan. I love all the movies and stuff. So I've been showing incredible restraint, not asking you about because you talked about how you were like a comic book trader.
Yes.
Can you just talk a little bit about how you got into that, what you did with that?
Sure. So for me, I lived up in Boston, and in Massachusetts, I lived in a place where there were over like 13 comic book stores.
Wow.
And there was a street where there were like 6 of them all together. And for me, I think it started with, so I'd always been into it when I was younger. But for me, I kind of went into a comic book store and I'm like, oh, cool. And I was looking around, and I remember seeing, so a lot of times the way that comic book stores are structured, there's like a front, and then there's a wall behind them with like all the high priced books. And usually the high priced books are like key issues, first appearances.
Right.
It's they're the more highly sought out after things. Yeah. But many stores have a basement where you go down into the basement and there's boxes filled with books that have not been organized, that the staff don't want to go through. Yeah. And they allow you to just go in, and it's just $1 a pop. Right? And so people in the comic book community, they call it hunting. And so I would go down there, and I think the first time I was just kind of looking through things, and in the beginning I just kind of picked out little things that I kind of liked here and there, and over my time there, after I bought a book, there was someone in the line who said, "Hey, that's actually worth something. You got it for $1?" I was like, "Yeah, I just like the cover and I wanted to read the story." It was X-Men, right?
Wow.
And he offered, "Hey, I'll give you $10 for it." And I was like, "I just bought it for $1 and he wants it for 10."
Yeah.
Okay. And so we made the exchange, and at that point I was like, "Man, is there something to this?" And so I started doing a little more deep research, and I realized that I kind of had a skill in determining earlier than most people certain books that were going to get bigger. Wow. And because I had this natural resource, of like all these comic book stores around me, I would go and I would just hunt. But also, like, there's so many people in the US who don't have a comic book store next to them. Yeah. And so they're always going on eBay, and they're going on these forums looking for certain issues. Yeah. And I'm telling you, David, it was as easy as, so I had a loop. I had a route, right? And some people in the comic book community are gonna hate me for this, but at the time I needed to feed my wife, right? And I needed to keep the heat on. Yeah. And so I would go from store to store, and literally each issue around like $3.99, and I would resell it for over $30. It was like picking fruit and then going to eBay and just shipping it off, and I think in that year, I made over $17K. Wow. In that year, but it helped put food on the table. Yeah. It helped keep the lights on. It helped me keep gas in the car. That's awesome. And Esther would let me do it because she knew that I just deeply wanted to provide. Yeah. You know, and for me, but it got to be too much of an idol. It got to the point where, I'm telling you right now, I don't know if your listeners know of this book. It's a pretty big book. It's Hulk 181. Okay. It's the first appearance of Wolverine. Oh, wow. A very classic cover. Beautiful book. And when I was at my comic book store, I frequented these like stores so much that I got to know the owners and stuff. And he was like, hey, look what I got today. And he had it in a vault. He like opened it up and he showed it to me. And as I'm sharing this, I'm going to look up the eBay prices for it. But he, long story short, I pulled out everything I had, in my car to like somehow trade or sell or like get it, and I ended up getting it. And it became one of the most expensive. So hold on, let me see if I can. Yeah. So I'm on eBay right now. I'm trying to pull it up. Yeah. The price for the condition that I had. It was easily a 9.2. It was raw though. It wasn't graded by a comic company or anything like that. But I'm trying to find like the cheapest price for 9.2. But at the time, I had got it for around $600. Okay. And I mean, this is easily a $3,000 book, and this is how bad the idolatry had gotten. I didn't want to sell it. I wanted to keep it. And I wanted to just hold on to it, even though our utilities were close to like getting cut off, and I just wanted to hold on to it. And at that point I realized, okay, this is something that I need to, it's not something that I'm holding, it's something that's holding me.
Yeah.
And the only one in the world that should have that is Jesus.
Right.
And over time, I sold that book, and I sold the Spider-Man 129, first appearance of the Punisher. I sold both of those books together, and I sold it for $6,500 at a mall. Crazy. It was just a cash exchange. And but I'm telling you right now, even though it seems like a lot of money, like $6,500, today, I would be considered somewhat cheap for what I gave it up for.
Wow.
But with that money, I was able to, carry on with our family stuff.
Yeah.
But it was something that really had a grip on me. It's not the same anymore.
I see.
I'm not really into buying and trading. I'm just collecting things that I like here and there. And that's it. But you should come over, and then I'll show you some of the books.
I would love to. I would love to.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming. You have such amazing and rich, deep stories. So thank you so much for coming and having this conversation with us. And you mentioned how if there were anyone considering joining the Army, you have a lot of information.
Yeah.
So I'll just give out my email. It's IHTHT podcast@gmail.com. That's I hope they hear this podcast@gmail.com. Or you can reach out on Instagram at I hope they hear this, or on Twitter at IHTHT podcast. And any questions you might have, if you forward it to me, or if you send it to me, I will forward it to Pastor Dan.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he'll be happy to respond and chat with you. So, and also this will be on YouTube. So look out for that on the Wednesday or Thursday after the release on Saturday.
Wow.
I say that because I do everything. This is a one-man show right now. I have to do all the editing and all that. And I have a baby as well. So sometimes it slips into Thursday. But keep an eye out for that. And guys, look forward to I know Pastor Dan is he's a busy guy. So I don't know when I can make it happen. But I definitely want to have more episodes.
Yeah.
Because
me too.
Yeah, even the little bit that we talked about with like you being a chaplain and all that, it's all really interesting stuff that I think people would be it would be a very compelling story. So keep an eye out for that, guys. I'm not sure when it will be, but we'll try to make it happen.
For sure.
Yeah, awesome.
Man, thanks for having me on, man.
And thank you to the listeners for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.